Start today with a check of our top stories and the latest out of Puerto Rico. A major power outage struck Puerto Rico late Wednesday night. Nearly 400,000 customers were affected after a fire erupted at the Costa Sur energy generation plant. The outage is believed to be one of the biggest in recent months for Puerto Rico's electrical grid. Luma Energy says they are working to restore power to the island, giving priority to hospitals and other institutions that need it more urgently. They say the issue could take quite a while to resolve. Governor Pedro Pierluisi has urged residents to remain calm. At this time, as of Thursday morning, the exact cause of the fire is still unknown. And switching gears now, the Jamaica government Wednesday disclosed that the island will not part ways with the British monarchy before celebrating its 60th year of independence on August 6th of this year. Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs Marlene Malahu Forte said while Prime Minister Andrew Holness intends to keep his promise of removing Queen Elizabeth II as the country's head of state, the Constitution sets out a process for amendment which legislators cannot deviate from. She disclosed that there are deeply entrenched provisions of Parliament which outline steps to facilitate Jamaica moving away from a constitutional monarchy to a republic. Minister Malahu Forte said unlike Jamaica, Barbados, which cut ties with the British monarch in November last year, did not require a referendum to make that change. According to the minister, it will take 6 months for the provisions to be debated and passed in the House of Representatives.
The deeply entrenched provisions require a vote of 2/3 members of both houses, and it also requires a vote by members who are qualified to vote in general elections. That's what we call the referendum. But before a bill which seeks to amend the ordinarily or deeply entrenched provisions can go through, there is a requirement of a 3-month period between the date when the bill is tabled on the House and the commencement of debate. So even if the bill were to be tabled, you'd have May, June, July before any debate could commence. And then after the debate is concluded, you would also need another 3 months before the bill can be passed in the House. There are two distinct issues, distinctly different procedures for changing those provisions of the Constitution. You do know that there are mixed views on which final court should be Jamaica's at this time. But I assure you that the decisions to be taken will be taken in the best interest of all Jamaicans.
All right, let's turn now to the latest developments in the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The United Nations, the U.S., and European countries continue to ramp up the pressure on Russia and Vladimir Putin. But Ukraine's president says more needs to be done to stop the brutal campaign Moscow has waged. Reporter Lauren Podesta has the latest on the war.
Today, the United Nations General Assembly will vote on suspending Russia from its Human Rights Council in the wake of the horrific images coming out of Ukraine.
There's nothing less happening than major war crimes.
President Biden announced a new round of sanctions, including ones that target Vladimir Putin's 2 adult daughters.
Just in 1 year, our sanctions are likely to wipe out the last 15 years of Russia's economic gains.
But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky criticized world leaders who still think that war and war crimes are not something as horrific as financial losses.
Hunger is also a weapon.
In a speech to lawmakers in Ireland, whose own history is fraught with famine, Zelensky said Russia is attacking food supplies and civilian targets.
Bombings in Mariupol. There is no single house left intact.
The mayor of Mariupol estimates 5,000 civilians have died, including more than 200 children.
The violence will continue. It could even intensify in that part of Ukraine.
The Pentagon says Russia has withdrawn all its troops from the north around Kyiv and is refocusing on eastern Ukraine. Local officials are warning residents to evacuate now. I went through the war when I was a child at the age of 3, this woman says, and now I just want to die in peace. According to the UN, about a quarter of all Ukrainians have fled their homes since the war began.
And meantime, a Stanford medical student's plan to bring suitcases of first aid supplies to Ukraine turned into, well, something much bigger. Working with his fellow students and some alumni, they loaded an entire cargo plane instead of a suitcase. Tara Campbell has the story.
$3.5 million in medical supplies being loaded onto a plane in Seattle, bound for Poland, then Ukraine, all thanks to the work of roughly 40 Stanford students. Kate Slankova helping lead the way.
And like a snowball, little by little, with all the help and all the supporters here at Stanford, this converted into this huge humanitarian mission.
And it all started with one medical student, Josh Pickering. The young Navy vet was ready to pack suitcases full of medical supplies, but it quickly turned into more.
And this whole mission just was born in our minds. We're like, why don't we limit ourselves to suitcases? Why don't we try to find a plane? Why don't we, use our Stanford network?
Students started tapping their contacts, from former employers to major foundations. Josh making his way to Poland to help with the delivery.
Evening. Plane landed at around midnight. They spent the entire night loading up the trucks.
And from there they drove, crossing the border into Ukraine and dropping supplies off in Lviv.
It was really just a completion of, a Herculean effort that our entire team, completed, and it was, ensuring the delivery of these supplies that we had gathered in these donations.
And these Stanford students aren't stopping at a single shipment. They have a number of projects on the go to get immediate help to the people of Ukraine.
There is another plane on April 11th, and we are working with other NGOs to make sure that all supplies that are available right now are going on that plane.
They've also started another fundraiser for more humanitarian aid.
Very motivating to continue the effort because they are of the mind, we will fight, we just need, help.
As for Kate, she has no plans to slow her efforts in helping her homeland.
Every day I think, it couldn't be worse. But then you see the news and apparently some things happen that you could not even imagine.
Oh, a great story there. Well, meantime, switching gears now, a new bill in Congress is seeking to hold passengers accountable for in-flight incidents. The Protection from Abusive Passengers Act was designed due to an uptick in unruly passengers and air rage. It would allow the TSA to create a program to ban passengers who are fined or convicted of unruly behavior or serious physical violence while on a flight. Passengers found guilty would be placed on a no-fly list for commercial planes, as well as removed from TSA PreCheck and global entry clearance.